do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indie Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indie Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Day one of the NCAA tournament is today, if you count the first four, which I do. How can you not? We get some of the most entertaining games happen here in the first four, and hopefully you've filled out your bracket. Actually, not really, because if you haven't, you should listen to this. Even if you have, you should go back and you should make some changes. Now, there's some murmurs about what's going to happen with the Indiana head coaching job. If that news breaks today, then trust me, we'll be all over it right here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show. We'll also be on it on the Dan Dockett Show from noon to 3. Matt Murphy, he's going to join me at 11 o'clock today to talk about Purdue and kind of their corner of the brackets. Before we get to that, though, I want to help you pick your bracket busters this year. I want to help you pick these lower-seeded teams that could legitimately go on a run, okay? Because every year it happens. It's why March Madness is the best. It is, okay? Because you get these, these Cinderella stories making these deep runs into the NCAA tournament, and I want to help you identify who they are before they happen. So for me, I want teams that are legitimately proven, if that makes sense. Okay, like I want teams that have won a lot of games. Okay, like UC San Diego, they're on my list. They won 30 games this year. You're not bad if you win 30 games. I also want teams that have a legitimate stud, have, a guy that used to play at, insert high Division I team here that transferred down and is now just a stud. And I also like teams that can really shoot the ball from 3, okay? Because that's what usually happens. Okay, like you have to be able to hit 3-point shots to beat teams that are better than you because, as I've said multiple times here on this show, the 3-point shot covers a multitude of sins. So without further ado, let's get into Top 10 Tuesday. Low seeds who could go on a run. Your potential Cinderella stories for this season. Number 10, this isn't in any set order, by the way. These are just 10 suggestions for your bracket. UC San Diego. They're 30-4, and they have a stud. I'm going to butcher his name because he's from New Zealand. Waniwa Tate Jones. We're just going to call him Tate Jones to make it a little more simple. Dude's a stud. 6'6" guard from New Zealand. He leads UC San Diego in points, rebounding, assists, and block shots this season. He is incredibly efficient. Shoots 58% from the floor. Very tough to, top that. And they have good players around him. My holdup with UC San Diego, I'm going to give you reasons for and reasons against. Okay, the reason why you should pick UC San Diego, who's a 12 seed, to upset, I believe they're playing Michigan in the first round. Yeah, they are. It's because this, Tate Jones kid is a stud. He can score, he can pass, he can do all those things. The thing that he can't do, however, is shoot the 3 ball. And how's he going to handle going up against, Golden and Danny Wolf when he doesn't really have much of a jump shot? The good news is that everyone around Tate Jones can shoot the ball. UC San Diego this year shooting 37% from 3. The 3-point shot covers a multitude of sins. If they knock them down against Michigan in the first round, we could definitely have an upset because Michigan goes through lulls where they don't really score the basketball a ton. And so this isn't one of my favorite first round upsets, but I don't mind it because, once again, teams that win 30 games are not bad. They're not. The next team, number 9 on my list, I've got VCU. They went 28-6 this year. They won the Atlantic 10, which I would argue is one of the better mid-major conferences in America. They've got good players. I know this because they have a good NIL program. According to Seth Greenberg, they're paying all their guys around $400,000 a year. I'm going with VCU, though, for reasons that I don't really like, if that makes sense. This is an elite defensive team. They are sitting at the top of the nation in effective field goal percentage defense, and they rank top 5 nationally at defending twos. Okay, they are very athletic, especially guarding the ball. And this Luke Bam Gaboyi, jeez, man, why do mid-major kids have to have such tough names? He's a very good rim protector on the back end. Okay, VCU, they apply a lot of, full court pressure, which is kind of a weird style. They're just a very aggressive defense. Okay, and they're this 11 seed. They're playing BYU, who can really shoot the ball. And the issue for VCU and why they aren't one of my preferred, underdogs to go on a Cinderella run is because they just don't shoot the ball great. They're only shooting 33% from three. They don't have a singular great offensive player. They do have 4 players averaging double figures, though. And so I prefer mid-major teams that have like a very specific stud. Okay, and they don't really have that, but they won the A-10. That's a good league. So if you wanted to take VCU to win a game or two, that would make a lot of sense. Colorado State is my 8th team on the list. They're as hot as anyone coming into the NCAA tournament. They've won 10 games in a row. They were 15-9 a month ago, and now they're 25-9. They are playing their best basketball of the year right now, and they have a stud who can absolutely shoot the basketball. I like them as a potential Sweet 16 team quite a bit. Okay, as a team, they shoot 37% from 3, so they can really shoot it. Nick Clifford is going to be an NBA player, averaging 19, 10, and 4, shooting 50% from the field, 40% from 3. The issue that Colorado State could run into, this is your reason to not pick them, is they aren't overwhelmingly athletic, which seems problematic, but then you remember that most of these mid-major teams aren't. Okay, like the athletes at these high major Division I teams, like they're always going to be more athletic. So Colorado State, they're not super athletic, but I don't think that that's really going to hurt them, especially with how well they shoot the ball and Nick Clifford's ability to get a bucket when he needs to. Number 7 on the list, Purdue fans, watch out for High Point. Okay, High Point's a really good team. They went 29-5 this year. They won their league, obviously. This is one of the best offensive teams in the country. They are 26th in offensive efficiency this year, according to KenPom. They can score the basketball. And Purdue, not a great team on the defensive side of the floor. Here's a big reason why I like High Point. They are an anomaly when you look at most of these mid-major teams in terms of their size. A lot of mid-majors, when they play against these, big D1 schools, or these, I guess, high major schools, they're clearly smaller. And if they do have a 7-footer, they're just out there because they're 7 feet tall, if that makes sense. But the High Point Panthers are not like that. They're bigger than Purdue. Kamani Hamilton is a transfer from Mississippi State. Okay, obviously a former SEC guy. So he's big, he's athletic, he can block shots and protect the rim. And then they've got another 7-footer named Jocelyn Bodo, who can also come in and block a lot of shots. They are legitimately bigger than Purdue is. I think this is a tough matchup for Purdue because High Point can really score, and size is what gives Purdue issues. And High Point has that. They have a lot of size. Okay, they actually, most of these mid-major teams wouldn't have anyone to put on Trey Kaufman-Renn. High Point actually does. So watch out for High Point to potentially beat Purdue. Hi, Purdue fans. I know you're just so happy that you tuned in today. Number 6, I think this is going to be a really trendy pick. Drake, the 11 seed. They went 30-3, won the Missouri Valley. That's a tough conference. They're a decent shooting team, shooting about 35% from 3 on the year. They have a stud, Bennett Sturts. Hope I said that properly. Point guard, he can really play, averaging a little under 20 points per game. He can really shoot it, 39% from 3 on the season. Here's my holdups with Drake. They're not super athletic, which once again, most of these mid-major teams aren't going to be as athletic as the power Division I teams, or I guess it's Power 6 in basketball. Okay, And the other thing about Drake that's concerning is they play extremely slow. And I don't mind teams that play at a slower pace. I think you would want to limit possessions for the other team and just try to bank on being efficient on the offensive end. But at the same time, what happens if they get sped up? I do think that that's a real question for them. This Bennett Sturts kid, he's excellent, really good point guard. That's kind of what gets me intrigued about them. They do have a couple wins against decent teams this year. They beat Kansas State. They beat Vanderbilt, who made the NCAA tournament. With that being said, if Missouri or Drake plays Missouri, if Missouri was to overwhelm them with athleticism and really sped up the game, I wouldn't be surprised. So Drake, I think they're going to be a trendier pick, especially with the way that Missouri ended the season. But I don't like Drake as much as I do some of these other teams that could potentially go on Cinderella runs. Number 5, maybe my favorite. I really like New Mexico, who's a 10 seed. They went 26-7 on the year. And America, get ready to meet Donovan Dent. Sensational point guard for the Lobos. One of the most dynamic players in the sport. Like, this guy could be one of the stars of the NCAA tournament. If they win, this first game, or they're a 10 seed, so their first matchup, it's not too crazy. They're playing Marquette, who's a little undersized. Like, they could beat them, and then turn around and beat Michigan State, and then this Donovan Dent dude would be an absolute star. He's averaging 20 points and 6.5 assists per game on the year. He's a 41% three-point shooter. This is the kind of guard that you need if you want to go on a run. Okay, Donovan Dent, he's the heartbeat of this Lobos offense. He's really good in ball screens. He gets to the rim with ease, and as I just mentioned, bro can shoot it. Okay, and then New Mexico has this big double-double machine center named Nelly Jr. Joseph. What an awesome name. I really like the names for New Mexico. Okay, like this is one of the better, small, big combos in all of mid-major basketball. Okay, New Mexico is also a top 20 defense nationally, according to KenPom, because they're big and they're actually pretty athletic. Okay, their starting lineup, they've got 3 guys, 6'9" or taller, which could be kind of interesting because, like I said, Marquette is a little undersized. So New Mexico, they have a stud, and they have the size to kind of match up with some of the bigger teams in, Power 6 Division I basketball. So New Mexico, I really like them. I might end up putting them in the Sweet 16. We'll see. I really like the way that they look, though. Number 4, a really trendy pick from last year. McNeese State. They're a 12 seed once again. Will Wade. They've got some manager that's like signing NIL deals, not even a player. Okay, so those guys, and McNeese State will probably once again be a favorite to pull off an upset. Here's the thing, though. I don't think that they have a great roster to go on a Cinderella run. They're very athletic by mid-major standards. And so in conference play, they can just kind of overwhelm teams with athleticism and pressure. And I don't care how athletic you are, McNeese State isn't going to show up and be more athletic than any of these Power 6 conference teams that they play. That being said, McNeese State was very competitive in 2 games against SEC opponents this season, right? They hung around against Alabama. That was back in November. They lost a nail-biter against Mississippi State in December. Okay, they're an excellent defensive team. They're long. Like I said, they're pretty athletic, right? They got a couple versatile pieces who can guard multiple positions. The thing that's different between last year's McNeese team and this team is last year they had a guy named Shahada Wells, who is supposed to be this elite shot maker. They don't have that anymore. They've got a guy who can kind of get hot in St. Louis Bilkins. Okay, but, they don't have that elite score. That's why I'm a little more hesitant to be all in on McNeese like people were last year before they got trounced by Gonzaga. Another team on my list, Yale, 13 seed. Beat Auburn last year as a 13 seed. Okay, went 22-7 on the year. Which isn't great, but man, they can shoot the ball. 39% from 3 on the year, so they can beat anyone. They don't turn the ball over, and they rebound pretty well. And that's the thing. for these, mid-major teams to pull off upsets, I think it's imperative that you don't turn the basketball over. Because if you're Yale or any other mid-major team, if you're giving whoever you're playing against an extra, 7 possessions because you're turning the basketball over, like you're not going to win. You're not. These teams aren't talented enough to overcome things like that. And then you have to be able to shoot the ball. Because if Yale was, one of the best teams in the country, they wouldn't be a 13 seed. Okay, and so the fact that Yale can really shoot the ball from 3, they rebound well defensively, and they don't turn the ball over, that gives them a chance. I will say Texas A&M has got to be maybe the worst matchup for them because A&M's ability to offensive rebound is as good as anyone in the country. Wade Taylor IV is an absolute bucket. I'm going to pick Texas A&M to win this game. I am. But Yale's ability to shoot the ball, how well they do a really good job of just taking care of the basketball, that makes them a good pick to pull off a couple of upsets. Another team here that I really like is Liberty. The Liberty Flames, to be more specific. And the Flames are an appropriate nickname for Liberty because they can flat out shoot the basketball. The best upset picks are oftentimes teams that play a high variance style. Liberty certainly qualifies. They are top 25 nationally in three-point attempt rate, and they're 5th nationally in three-point percentage, while also being one of the best defenses in the country at preventing the 3. Okay, they can shoot the basketball. And when they're shooting the ball well, they can beat anyone. And with 3 guards who have each hit 53s or more at a clip of 39% or better this season, like you've got multiple shooters to really be worried about. Okay, when you shoot the ball as well as Liberty does, you can beat anybody. So, Liberty, that's another, I think they're an excellent team to pick in terms of a potential upset. Now, with them, because there's this high variance style, there's a world where they shoot 43% from 3 as a team, and they beat, they're a 12 seed, who are they playing here in the first round, and they beat Oregon. It's very possible. Or they could chuck a whole bunch of 3s, miss a bunch, and lose by 30 against Oregon. That is also a very possible thing. So Liberty, a lot of fun to watch. Make sure you're tuned in and keeping an eye on them. Last team for Top 10 Tuesday of the teams that could potentially go on a big run and win a whole bunch of games in March. UNC Wilmington. They're a 14 seed, which I usually don't like picking 14 seeds because 3 seeds are just really good. They won 27 games this year. In each of the last 4 tournaments, we've seen a 14, 15, or 16 seed win a game. Now, I don't think any 1, 2, or 3 seeds is going to lose in the first round this year. But if one does, I do think UNC Wilmington will be the team to pull off this upset. Okay? They're big. They've only got 1 player in their rotation under 6'5". They do a really good job at getting to the rim. They've got a couple guys that can post up. They've got a 7-footer named Harlan Obioa, who's capable of generating offense one-on-one in the post, which I don't really like because posting up mid-major dudes and posting up like Power 6 Division I basketball players is just different. My holdup with UNC Wilmington is their inability. They're playing Texas Tech, by the way, who's really good. They just don't shoot the ball very well. And so it feels like too many things are going to have to go right for them. Whereas when you compare them to teams like Yale and Liberty, who are shooting 39% from 3, like you can get out rebounded. But if I make more 3s than you, I'm probably going to beat you. Like that's just the reality of it. Whereas for UNC Wilmington, like they're going to have to play a pretty specific style and have a lot of things go their way in order to beat a really good Texas Tech team. So I probably wouldn't bet on them, but I really like a lot of these other teams to potentially go on some Cinderella runs. My good friend Matt Murphy, who's been on the show before, he's gonna come on here in about 40 minutes. I'm gonna run my high point thoughts by him, and we're gonna talk about Purdue in the first round. What do they kind of look like? We'll get into just kind of that whole corner of the bracket for Purdue. It'll be really good. That's coming up at 11 o'clock. The Indiana Pacers last night were awesome. And I know that it's March. It's March Madness. It starts tonight. We got the first games in Dayton happening. But I have to talk about the Pacers. If you missed it, you missed one of the best games of the year. What happened in this game was absolutely unreal. And I think people should be a lot more confident in the Pacers going forward after what happened last night. I'm going to tell you why when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Hey, be sure to check out Dave & Buster's this March with their Eat and Play combo starting at just $19.99 for the ultimate game thrill. Upgrade to a $59.99 option for 90 minutes of unlimited fun. Catch all the games at Dave & Buster's with multiple TVs. Join me Thursday, March 20th, the first day of the tournament at the Greenwood location. I'll be doing the show live from 12 to 3. If you can't make it to Greenwood, check out their Castleton and Bloomington locations. Again, join me Thursday, March 20th, Dave & Buster's Greenwood. More information, visit daveandbusters.com.
It may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back into the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you guys are off to a good start this week. Hopefully you've already made your brackets. Man, the Indiana Pacers last night, I love that team so much. They're down 4 out of 5 starters. No Tyrese Halliburton. No Tyrese Halliburton. No Miles Turner. No Aaron Nesmith. No Pascal Siakam. It's just all the backups. Jarris Walker getting a start. Benedict Mathurin being, the guy last night. And that game was crazy. Andrew Nembhard gets ejected after two technical fouls. Benedict Mathurin fouled out in the fourth quarter. And that happened. And I was like, all right, no more, no more Mathurin, no more Nembhard. Like, where's the Pacers offense going to come from? It's like, probably TJ McConnell, but TJ McConnell, kind of predictable. Like, he wants to get, 6 feet away from the basket and take a really tough contested 2. It's like, yeah, probably not going to happen for him, especially since they're playing against a Minnesota Timberwolves team who had won 8 straight, and they don't really have anyone who can guard Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards took 1 million free throws last night. It was kind of ridiculous. And there were all these moments where the Timberwolves would go up by like 5. And I was like, you know what? Here we go. They're going to pull away. And then Obi Toppin, who finished with 34, would come down the floor and he'd hit a huge 3 to cut it down to 2. And I'd be like, all right, I guess I gotta stay tuned into this for just a little bit longer. And eventually the Pacers would take the lead. I mean, Obi Toppin last night was just awesome. 34 points, 10 rebounds. Thomas Bryant, was good on the glass for them. He had 7 rebounds. Jarris Walker, he was +2 on the night, 13 points, 5 of 12 from the floor. He had a couple bad turnovers, which were a little annoying. He had to guard Anthony Edwards, which he did better than anyone else would have done on that team. I mean, just an incredible, an incredible effort from this team. And I walked away from that game last night just so pleased because the Pacers have been struggling. They've been 2-4 in their last 6, and then you read the injury report, and it's like they're going to fall to 2-5. But Rick Carlisle did an excellent job rallying the troops, getting them ready to go, pushing all the right buttons. Andrew Nembhard was great before he, was stupid and got teed up twice. He seemed like he was due for a big kind of breakout game. Didn't happen. But still, I mean, the minutes he played were good. McConnell ended up playing 30 minutes, 11 points, 13 assists. Just did an excellent job of setting the table. The Pacers shot the crap out of the ball. 17 of 37 from 3. Or excuse me, 17 of 37 from 3. The Timberwolves did not shoot it very well from 3. Like, the only guy who it really felt like shot it well from 3 was Dante DiVincenzo, who was 5 of 11. But as a team, the Timberwolves were only 13 of 42. The Pacers did an excellent job of defending the 3 and making their open ones, especially Obi Toppin, man. Just 7 of 10 from 3. What a night to really get it going. I thought that the minutes that Mathurin was on the floor were just very productive. Like, he wasn't super efficient from the floor, but he finished +4. He defended his butt off, got to the rim, got fouled it felt like he got fouled quite a bit. He ended up being 7 of 8 from the free throw line, but that's nothing compared to Anthony Edwards' 19 of 20 from the free throw line. I mean, geez Louise, that's crazy. So just really good, really uplifting stuff from them last night, just playing their butts off and grabbing a much needed win in that game because they're still trying to jockey for position to grab that 4 seed. And going into last night, they were half a game back of the Bucks. They're now tied. Both teams are 38 and 29. And, the Bucks have the tiebreaker because they beat the Pacers 3 out of 4 times this season. They're now a full game up on the Detroit Pistons, and the Pacers have a legitimate chance here to really win several games in a row. They're going to play Dallas at home on Wednesday, tomorrow. They should win that game. And then they get the Nets Thursday at home and Saturday at home. And then Monday at home, they get the Timberwolves. And I'm assuming that they're not going to be missing 4 of 5 starters that week or in that game. So they have a chance here to go on a nice little 4-game winning streak. Okay, the Bucks are about to go out west on what is going to be a very tough road trip, playing the Lakers, who were obviously a good team, and the Clippers, who were a little better than what I think people imagined they would be before the year started, and they're going to play Golden State. All those tough Western Conference teams, like that is what's up next for the Milwaukee Bucks. So the Pacers have an opportunity here to overtake them and hopefully hold on to that 4 seed for the rest of the season. They need to win these next 3, though. They're very winnable, but as we know, the Indiana Pacers don't exactly like winning easy games. But, we'll have to wait and see kind of how they look. Coming up here in about 30 minutes, my very good friend, Matt Murphy, is going to join the show, and we're going to discuss Purdue's corner of the NCAA tournament bracket. And before I do that, I want to highlight something about Purdue that I think is rather impressive. Purdue's been a top 4 seed 8 years in a row. That's crazy. They've been a 1, 2, 3, or 4 seed 8 years in a row. Matt Painter continues to prove why he's one of the best coaches in all of college basketball. 8 straight seasons of being a 4 seed or higher in the NCAA tournament is really impressive. And the last 8 years, no one is close to that. Arizona and Tennessee in the last 8 years have been top 4 seeds 4 times. Those are the teams closest to Purdue. Now, there's 2 ways to go about this. I can sit and marvel at the regular season success that Purdue has had. Okay? I just wax poetic about Matt Painter and how he's also always running really good offense and how he brings in these 3-star guys and he does a really good job of, catering the offense and defense to their skill set. And that's why they end up as a top 4 seed every single year. That's what it feels like. 8 years in a row. Okay? That's crazy. Joe C. over on YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to watch the show over there. He just hopped in the chat, said this is Purdue's 10th straight NCAA tournament appearance. Great. Love that. The other part of this, the other direction that I could go in is ask just a very simple question of why hasn't this led to more NCAA tournament success? If you're a top 4 seed 8 years in a row, I would like to think that you have more than one Final Four appearance. And I don't have an answer to this question, but I'm sure it's one that Purdue fans have, I'm sure it's one that they ask themselves all the time. Why doesn't Purdue have more success in March Madness? The seeding is in your favor. Being a top 4 seed, if you're a top 4 seed, you should consistently make runs to the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8. Okay? And then, of course, you keep running, Gritty over there in our YouTube chat, huge IU fan saying, here comes the reality about Purdue. They can never win the big one. Yeah. And that's where it is. And I have theories on why. I think part of it is the fact of how they recruit. When they play against mid-major teams, and I think we're going to see this against High Point, there's no physical advantage. You have to genuinely be better than basketball at them, which happens most of the time for Purdue. I know that they've got the loss to North Texas and Fairleigh Dickinson and all these other teams, but when you watch some of these other, Big Ten teams in their first round game, they are just physically overwhelming against whoever they end up playing against in the NCAA tournament. That never happens for Purdue. And so there's a part of me, like, I'm not going to sit here and say that Matt Painter's wrong because the dude's had a ton of success. He went to a Final Four last year, got his team all the way to a national championship game. Any other year, like, if they're not playing that UConn team, they probably win the whole thing. Like, that's how good that Purdue team was last year. That being said, is there any sort of, I guess, tweak that Matt Painter could make to give his team just a little bit more success in the NCAA tournament? I don't know. It's just really a thought. Once again, my good friend Matt Murphy, Purdue alum, he's going to join the show coming up at 11 o'clock, and we're going to talk about Purdue's corner of the bracket. I'm going to ask him that question because I'm really curious his thoughts. He's coached, so he knows a little something about basketball. Can't wait to have him on at 11 o'clock. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, I want to talk about the SEC a little bit. I've seen people get upset at the fact that the SEC got 14 teams in. It's a record. You know, some people would say like there's no way that the 14th best team in the SEC is better than, the 7th best team in the ACC. I would beg to differ. I'll tell you why when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Twitter, __ Jonathan Smith on Twitter, Indy Sports Ticket over on the YouTubes. You can also listen via that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you get your apps. Now, the North Carolina getting into the NCAA tournament controversy that will no longer be a controversy once the ball tips tonight at 6:40 has kind of masked this other issue that I think people have, that I know that people have, with the NCAA tournament committee this year. I've seen several complaints about it. Danny Cannell, captain anti-SEC. You know, he kind of led the charge, as he always does. 14 teams from the SEC got in. That is a record. And the committee was 1,000% correct to do this. The SEC this year was hands down the best conference in college basketball. They undoubtedly should have gotten 14 teams in. Now, some of these teams don't need defending. I think everyone knows that Auburn's really good. Alabama's one of the better teams in the country. Tennessee, Florida, all these other high-seeded teams, I think people understand. Texas A&M. The question is, what about, the 8 seeds that got in, the 9 seeds, the 10 seeds, Texas as an 11 playing in the first 4. Okay, like why do those teams get in? Meanwhile, the 7th best team in the ACC doesn't get in. First and foremost, let me remind you, in the SEC ACC Challenge this year, the SEC went 15-1 against the ACC. The ACC was bad this year, and that's also part of what played into this. This was the best year for a team to get, or for a conference to get 14 teams in. So let's run through some of these like bubble SEC teams that the NCAA tournament committee gave the nod to, which once again, they were completely and totally correct to do. So Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, and Georgia. I think these are kind of the teams that need to be defended. They're all 8 seeds and lower. I've got Mississippi State in here and Oklahoma in here as well. So let's run through this. Texas. They were one of the last teams in, first 4. They're playing tomorrow night against Xavier. They went 6-12 in SEC play. But here are the teams that they beat. They beat Missouri. They beat Texas A&M twice. They beat Kentucky. And they beat Mississippi State. That's 5 wins over tournament teams. 4 wins over teams that are 6 seeds or higher in the NCAA tournament. That's more good wins than a lot of other teams that are in the NCAA tournament have. Okay, that's why they got in. They proved that they can beat really good teams. Oklahoma also went 6-12 in the SEC. They're a 9 seed. They beat Arizona out of conference. They beat Louisville out of conference. They beat Michigan, your Big Ten tournament champ. They beat Mississippi State and Missouri as well. It's 5 wins against teams that are an 8 seed or higher. Vanderbilt also got in. They're a 10 seed. They went 8-10 in the SEC. They beat Tennessee, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Missouri. That's 5 wins against teams that are a 6 seed or higher. Georgia went 8-10 in the SEC. They beat St. John's, it's a 2 seed, won the Big East. Kentucky and Florida, a 1 seed, a team that a lot of people are picking to win the whole thing. That's 3 wins against teams of a 3 seed or better. Once again, Mississippi State, they went 8-10 in the SEC. They're an 8 seed. They beat Memphis, who won the American. They beat Ole Miss, and they beat Texas A&M. That's 3 wins over teams that are 6 seeds or higher. And then finally, you have Arkansas, who went 8-10 in the SEC. They beat the Big Ten tournament champ Michigan. They beat Kentucky on the road. They beat Missouri, and they beat Mississippi State. It's 4 wins against teams that are an 8 seed or higher. This was also the perfect year for a specific conference to get a whole bunch of teams in. Because the bubble this year wasn't very good. North Carolina and Xavier both got in with one single quad one win. Every fringe SEC team that made the tournament, so all those teams that I just went through, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, Texas, every team that made the tournament has more good wins than North Carolina and Xavier combined. Seriously, that is why the SEC got so many teams in. That's why they deserved to get so many teams in. Okay, all of these good teams have more good wins than teams like North Carolina, San Diego State, and Xavier. Every SEC team that got in, 1,000% deserves to be in. They were hands down the best conference this year. As a conference, they won 89% of their games in the non-conference. That's really impressive. This felt like a down year for the bubble. So this was the year that anything like this was going to happen. Okay, the ACC was down. We talked about the Big Ten a little bit here on my show, and I've discussed slightly that, the Big Ten, like, there's a lot of good teams in the Big Ten, but there's not a great team. I don't think there's a team in the Big Ten that you look at and you're like, yeah, that team can win the whole thing. I don't think there's one. I know the Michigan State's awesome. I know that, you don't bet against Tom Izzo when it comes to, March time, because that dude just finds a way to win games. But like, aside from them, like, there's no one else in the Big Ten that feels like they're good enough to win the whole thing. And then, like, you look at the SEC, and that's, they've got like 3 teams that might be good enough to win the whole thing between, Florida, Auburn, Alabama. I guess you could maybe throw Tennessee in there if you wanted to. I personally wouldn't. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. The Big 12, I didn't think was very good either. I didn't think they were great this year either. Houston, definitely good enough to win the whole thing, but that's really it. Like, Baylor was down this year. It's not great. When you look at the other thing, though, that I want to talk about when we talk about teams getting in and not getting in and getting snubbed, I find the story out of West Virginia so funny. Like, the fact that the state of West Virginia is suing the NCAA for leaving West Virginia out of the tournament, I just think it's really funny. I'm sure that this is going to fix the issue. I don't know if you heard, but they're actually going to postpone all the games tonight so that they can kind of work out this suing thing and reevaluate whether or not West Virginia should be in the NCAA tournament. So, like, that's not true. That's me being sarcastic. The thing that I find funny about this, like, what happens if the court rules in their favor? We're going to, replay the entire NCAA tournament. Instead of March Madness, it's June Madness. We're redoing the whole thing in June. That would actually be a whole lot of fun. But I don't know. I find stuff like this incredibly stupid. I'll never understand why states do things like that. Final thing here before 11 o'clock when my guy Matt Murphy joins the show and we talk a little bit about that Purdue corner of the bracket. The first 4 starts tonight. Like March Madness, it really started with the mid-major NCAA tournaments. But the first 4 starts the NCAA tournament. And I always enjoy these games. 2 teams that are usually pretty evenly matched. It's kind of not tradition, but it's become more common for teams in these first 4 games, these 11 seeds. It's pretty normal now for one of them to go on a run, to go to the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8. So I'm very intrigued to see if that happens once again this year. But tonight at 6:40, the first game we get is St. Francis and Alabama State. Alabama State's a 3.5-point favorite. Here's the best thing about March Madness. I don't know a single thing about either one of these teams. Whoever wins this game, they're going to lose when they play a 1 seed. It doesn't matter, though. This game's going to be fun. I like watching mid-major teams play against each other because I'm wrong when I say this, but it feels like I'm kind of watching a pickup game because there's no huge 7-footer. The guys playing center are 6'5", And, Dayton always does such a good job of hosting these games, and the environments are always good and they're fun. And every team in these first 4 games are desperate, right? Because their season is on the line. And for St. Francis and Alabama State, they're working their butts off trying to actually make the field of 64. They're fighting for the right to get their butts kicked by, I don't know if they're playing Auburn or Duke. Doesn't matter. They're getting trounced either way after this game. But emotions are going to be high. Like these are the biggest games of every kid playing for St. Francis and Alabama State's lives. And it's going to be such a fun time to watch. And there's going to be some dude tonight who scores like 25. And he's going to be, the thing on Twitter for the next 24 hours until the next set of first 4 games tomorrow night happen. And I can't wait to watch these games. Like I'm going to have an absolute blast. I'm going to have more fun, hopefully, watching St. Francis and Alabama State than I am watching North Carolina and San Diego State, which is the nightcap tonight. That game doesn't tip till 9:10, which is, it's kind of late. I don't really like that, but it's fine. It's fine. So North Carolina and San Diego State, they're playing tonight, and I am so excited for this game. I am. And probably more excited than I've been for a first 4 game in quite some time. Because everyone's super upset with North Carolina getting into the NCAA tournament. And I'm with people, okay? They did not deserve to be in. I thought Indiana had a better resume than North Carolina. They had a better resume than Xavier. But I went through all that yesterday. North Carolina are favored by 4.5 tonight. And, everyone's going to be rooting against them because, their athletic director was the head of the NCAA selection committee this year. And, people thought that they were just kind of given a gift, the fact that they won one quad 1 game all year, and they put them in. I hope North Carolina goes to the Final Four. I think that would be amazing. After all this whining and complaining about how, they don't deserve to be in and all this kind of stuff. It would be the best thing if RJ Davis, their starting point guard, who's awesome, by the way. I think it would be awesome if, RJ Davis gets hot for 3 weeks. He's going for 30 a game. We're seeing 2008 Steph Curry at Davidson out there. And North Carolina just wins all these games. And we look up and they're in the Elite Eight. I think that would be amazing. I want that to happen so badly. So badly. I think it'd be awesome. I really do. So, North Carolina, they're playing San Diego State tonight. That game is going to be a lot of fun. And then tomorrow night, we've got, obviously more games going on. Xavier, they're going to play Texas. I actually think that game of all the first 4 games, I think that might be the best one. Not because I think Xavier's any good, because I don't think that they're any good, honestly. But Texas kind of has this curse isn't the right word, but they'll play down to their opponent's level of competition. That game gonna be heavily a Xavier crowd, given that they're in Cincinnati, Ohio. That game's gonna be played in Dayton, so kind of a road environment for Texas. I think that game's gonna have the best environment around it. I don't want to talk about that game too much because obviously I'm gonna talk about it a little bit more tomorrow. And then the 16 seeds, you got Mount St. Mary's and you've got American University. So yeah, can't wait for those games tomorrow night. NCAA tournament. We got a full day of games on Thursday. It's always my favorite show of the year. Also one of the toughest shows for me to do every year because there's 2 TVs in here. I'm going to have games rolling. I'm going to be watching them. I'm going to be trying not to get distracted by, 2 teams that I've watched 20 minutes of all year. And it's going to be an absolute blast. Hopefully you're tuning in tomorrow to watch the games with me. It's going to be fun. I can't wait. When we come back at 11 o'clock, my guy, Matt Murphy, he's going to join the show. We're going to talk Purdue. He's a Purdue alum. He's coached basketball. He knows what he's talking about. He's watched every minute of Purdue this year because that's just what Matt does. And we're going to talk about their corner of the bracket, high point, all that good stuff. Can't wait to have my good friend Matt Murphy join the show when we come back at 11 o'clock.
I occasionally have nerve discomfort in my hands, so the things I love to do
Let's play something, Grandma.
became difficult as I got older.
If you have occasional stabbing and burning in your hands and feet, try Nervive Nerve Relief. Nervive's clinically studied dose of alpha-lipoic acid reduces occasional nerve discomfort in as little as 7 days with continued daily use. Say yes to healthy nerves with Nervive Nerve Relief. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Hey, Joy. Oh, you are glowing.
Oh, hey, more like Mirajoyed. That Miralax helped me go. I was so backed up. Tried mega coffees, prune, then Miralax. And hello, gentle relief without the harsh side effects.
Ooh, how does it work?
It works naturally with the water in your body for constipation relief. Find Miralax today at your local retailer.
Use as directed for occasional constipation.
Paid for by Christian Care Ministry.
Let's see, if something costs less, a lot less, but people are actually happier with it, that sounds like something to look into. And that's MetaShare. Maybe you've heard joining MetaShare can save you or your family up to $500 a month. And that's huge, but it's also true. People are just happier with it. They love being part of something that reflects and promotes their values and what they believe in. MetaShare works too. It's been around for 30 years now, and members have shared.
Let's do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back into the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket, joined by the one and only Matt Murphy, Purdue alum, former basketball coach. Matt, I know you only have like 15 minutes, so we're going to jump straight into it. How do you feel about the matchup between Purdue and High Point?
It's a great question. Have taken a couple days here to do some research on the High Point Panthers. I know that the viral moment of one of the guys mean mugging has gone out, last week, I think. That's the only really thing I knew about him. And the more I looked at him, it is a really intriguing matchup in general, because the team itself, you think, they're just a mid-major school, right? They haven't played anybody, no strength of schedule, anything like that. They've only really played two teams that are in the top 125 in the country. So I haven't really played anybody, but they're obviously on a 14-game win streak. the more you just look at the roster itself, they are full of guys that played in Power 5 conferences and, some really, really talented players. They even have a 5-star player at least out of high school he was. So a very veteran team, roster full of guys that have played against teams like Purdue. So this is certainly not your run-of-the-mill mid-major team, right? So they're full of guys with some experience, and then as well they're juniors and seniors for the most part. I think they have one sophomore that's in the rotation. So my first initial reaction is this doesn't feel like your average mid-major squad.
Joined by my good friend Matt Murphy, Purdue alum, former basketball coach, talking about Purdue's corner of the bracket and their opening matchup with High Point. Yeah, the offense is really efficient. I think that's the first thing that you notice when you watch High Point. Like, they're 26th in offensive efficiency this year, according to KenPom. But like you said, when you're playing against teams that aren't as good as you are, especially when you have all these big time transfers coming in, like your offense should look like that. The concerning thing for me that I think is what I think makes this matchup interesting is I feel like most mid-majors are just smaller than a lot of the, Power 6 teams that they play. That is not the case for High Point. Like, they've got 2 legitimate centers. You could argue Purdue doesn't have any centers. How concerned are you about High Point size?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the guy's name is Jeslyn Bodo, which that's probably the coolest name in this matchup for sure. But he's a really efficient shot blocker and rebounder, considering he only really plays about 20 minutes a game. So you mentioned the 2 centers. They pretty much split time. 2 different styles. I think Bodo is more of your classic rim protector. He'll play a lot of drop coverage. So it's kind of twofold. It's hey, they've got legitimate centers that can maybe defend TKR, but then at the same time, think about what Purdue does really well offensively, and that's the high ball screen and roll, the 2-man game with Braden Smith and TKR, 2 of the best players in the Big Ten Conference. So I think it's interesting because that size is a great thing at the rim for High Point, but as well because they play drop coverage, you would think Braden Smith is going to have a field day and be really comfortable for a majority of the game. So I think part of it is going to benefit High Point in the rim protection, certainly in the rebounding department as well. Something that High Point does well is rebound, certainly on the offensive glass. But then again, it kind of comes back to bite you when you can't really send a guy like Bodo out for a really high hedge to disrupt any ball screen action. So I think it's going to be really interesting that in general, some of Purdue's proficiencies that they have play into some of the things that High Point doesn't do great defensively, and the same thing is true on the other side. The High Point offensively, some of the things they do really well attacks areas that Purdue has been brutally bad in, and that specifically being the 2-point percentage defense that Purdue has, and I think it's like 350th in the nation, which it doesn't even feel real. It doesn't feel like a real statistic, but they're that bad at defending inside the 3-point line. And High Points, I think they're top 50 in 2-point scoring on the year. So it's just going to be a really interesting game because, again, it's set up in a way where what High Point does well, Purdue's bad at. What Purdue does well offensively, High Point is poor at defensively. So it should be really interesting.
Joined by my good friend Matt Murphy, Purdue alum, former basketball coach as well. What's the ceiling for Purdue's run this year?
I would say probably the Sweet 16. I think, believe it or not, I think High Point is a worse matchup for them than who they would see in the second round. I think Clemson is an experienced team, but honestly, I think they match up pretty well against them and would like them to win that game. I certainly like their matchup against McNeese if McNeese upsets Clemson. So really, I think if they get through this first game, I do like them to reach the Sweet 16. I don't see this being a team that reaches, rounds beyond the Sweet 16. And I think reasons for that, Jonathan, would be this team has really struggled in this back half of the year. If they played the way they did in January, in February, I think this team is a 2 to 3 seed and would be really, they were playing well enough defensively in January. This is a type of team that you could think could contend for even a national championship at minimum, to be in the Final Four, Elite Eight. But they have just fallen off a cliff defensively. Has led to them losing a lot of games that they should at least be around for. I think Big Ten tournament, you see their performance against Michigan, where it really just looked like they quit. If I'm being honest, they weren't making shots, and defensively there wasn't a lot of effort or energy. And so I just can't see them turning the tide that quickly from playing as bad as they have the last 8 to 10 games to flipping a switch and winning 4 games in a row here in the tournament against quality teams. So I think that Sweet 16 would be, hey, you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, we won a couple games. We made it to the second weekend. Don't see them going much beyond that.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with them. I just, you mentioned it looking like they quit and there wasn't much energy. My thing with them is so much of the offense all year has been so reliant on Trey Coffin-Wren and Braden Smith. When do they run out of gas? Can anyone else play a little better? Even though I do think that the finally getting a nice little Camden Heidi sighting was nice, but you need a little more than that. And my biggest concern with them is Houston's probably the worst 1 seed that they could play, given just how intense and physical they are on the defensive side of the ball. That is a tough team for Braden Smith to play a full 40 minutes against.
Totally agree. Yeah, totally agree. And especially considering you look at you mentioned kind of the wear and tear throughout the season, just because of both Braden and TKR's usage rates are just insanely high, which leads to them being incredibly productive, right? Statistically. But you do see even, again, not even just the season wear and tear, but even the in-game wear and tear, that especially Braden, you can see him he runs out of gas. And it's not that he isn't good when he's out of gas. He's still a good player, but he's a different player. I think when you have 30 minutes of a team pressuring up and where literally the entire offense rests on his shoulders, right? And a lot of weight to carry for one individual. And so that's certainly an area of just roster building that Purdue didn't really address. As a guy like a Lance Jones last year that could come in, and even if it was for 5 minutes, be able to be another option in the offense to take some pressure off. And I think as that pressure has mounted throughout the year, you've seen a decline even in games, right? They start out well, they look good, and then it's hard to keep an energy level up when it's really the standard of the team's performance is being held up by 2 players. So, I think that does make a deep run in March really, really difficult when it's on the shoulders of 2 people.
I completely agree. Once again, joined by my good friend Matt Murphy, Purdue alum, former basketball coach as well, talking about Purdue and just kind of what their section of the bracket kind of looks like. I am going to tell you, I've got Duke winning the whole thing. Who do you like?
Okay. Yeah, I like Duke. I'm a big analytics guy, big metrics guy. I know that a lot of the just historically when looking at the national champions, they got to meet certain criteria, at least historically. And some of that's offensive rating, defensive rating being in the top 10. I believe it's top 20. And then as well, there's a couple in regard to their current recent play. Because of those 2 things, I do like Duke being one of the teams that could win. I also like Florida. I know some people are kind of picking them to get upset. I think in Elite Eight. I like Florida. I really do. I think they've been really great all year. They're really good defensively and on the glass. So I still haven't filled out my bracket in all honesty.
Okay.
But I think I'm gonna get to that during my lunch break today, hopefully. But yeah, I'm going to be flipping a coin between Florida and Duke.
Yeah, that seems to kind of be the consensus. It's going to be Florida or Duke. I think, you can see other people's brackets, and I think last time I checked, 25% of brackets had picked Duke, 20% had picked Florida, which means neither Duke nor Florida will win the whole thing, because that's how that's how this works.
That's how it works.
Joined by Go ahead.
Oh, hey, really, really quick, got to ask you, do you have anybody on any region that you look at and you're like, hey, I think they can make a run to beyond what the public would then see that team is capable of, right? Whether it's the Elite Eight, a run to the Elite Eight, a run to the Final Four. Is there anybody that you like that would be a surprise?
I've got New Mexico in my Sweet 16. I think they're going to beat Marquette and Michigan State. They've got a stud named Donovan Dent, 20 points a night, 6.5 assists a night, shooting 41% from three. He's paired with this really good center. Like you could argue here. I think here's a good way to put it. They are the like Braden Smith, Trey Kaufman-Wren of mid-major basketball. They play really well together. They're also big. Like they've got 3 guys in their starting lineup that are 6'9" or taller. Like they're pretty athletic. So I really like New Mexico. I believe Rick Pitino's son is their coach as well. If I remember that correctly. So I like them in my Sweet 16, but I'll be honest, like it's a lot of chalk. I've got all 4 1 seeds in my Final Four.
In a good spot to potentially, make it Elite Eight, Final Four, and just having them paired with Florida in that West region. I was pretty bummed because I really liked some of the talent that they have from the bigs position, obviously with Queen and Reese, and then they got a couple of guards that can really, really play. But again, I like Florida coming out of that region. I do like Drake. I like Drake to beat Missouri in that first round, but then they presumably have Texas Tech sitting there in the round of 32. So I do think, and I did want to ask you about this. I know you're an Arkansas guy. Kansas, Arkansas in that first round, and then the winner of that presumably taking on St. John's. I feel like the committee really blessed us there with some legendary coaches matching up.
This is made for TV.
In the first and second round. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It is. My concern with Arkansas is they are very banged up. Like they only had 7 scholarship guys available during the SEC tournaments. They're getting Boogie Flan back, who's a really good player, but he hadn't played since, like December maybe. So he's not going to play much. They don't have a ton of front court depth, which is kind of problematic when you're playing against Hunter Dickinson and this Kansas team. So I picked Arkansas because I'm not going to pick against them. But like I would if I wasn't an Arkansas fan, I would pick Kansas.
Gotcha.
So
I last thing I'll say, I think it's really intriguing looking at the Big Ten and some of the draws that they got. I don't mind Oregon's draw. I think they're a team. If Shellstad makes shots, like they've got some guys that can really disrupt from the wing perspective, and I think they're a decent matchup with Arizona. So I don't mind them making it to the second weekend, and that matchup within, again, presumably Duke in the Sweet 16 would be really interesting. I think specifically Nate Biddle could provide some problems for Duke, but not that I think they would upset them. I just think that would be a really interesting matchup. And then lastly, where was I looking at? For some reason, I really like Illinois. I really do. I don't like that they would have to play Kentucky, but they're a team I think that has been up and down, but their highs are so high.
They are.
That if they're and they're a different type of team than Purdue. Purdue's highs were high, but they ride on the coattails of really 2 players, whereas Illinois have got a much deeper bench, a much deeper contributing crowd of players in there. And so I really do think that if they could get past either Texas or Xavier and then get past Kentucky, they've got a really interesting road to potentially, if they see a team like Tennessee, we'll see. But I like don't like their draw. I liked them coming into the tournament. So I was a little frustrated that they were paired over with Kentucky, but we'll see. It should be a really, really fun couple weekends.
We will. I would double check your Liberty stuff. I think they're actually a really good team that could upset Oregon.
Well, yeah. Sorry to clarify. I was sharing teams that I liked coming into the tournament that I didn't love their draw.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
Again, I same with Maryland. Same with
Illinois.
Yeah, same with Illinois.
Okay.
Where you like them coming in, they're playing pretty good basketball. Yeah, Liberty, I'm sure. I don't know that much about them.
25th in the country in 3-point rate, and they're 5th in the country in 3-point shooting percentage. And I just feel like teams that shoot the ball that well are really good picks to pull off upsets.
Well, John, I'm glad I got to talk to you before I fill out my bracket in 45 minutes. Good, man.
That's right.
Thanks for the time, man. It's always a pleasure.
Yep. See you, buddy. That is Matt Murphy, really good friend of mine, Purdue alum, former basketball coach as well. Really knows his stuff, as you can tell. When we come back, here in about 4 minutes or so. I gave some of it away right there, but we're going to go through on this edition of Top 10 Tuesday, the 10 teams that I think are most likely to go on any sort of Cinderella run. I'm going to give them to you when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indie Sports Ticket if you want to watch there. __ Jonathan Smith on Twitter if you want to watch the stream there, maybe. Or you can also listen on that Indie Sports Ticket app. Top 10 Tuesday. Low seeds who could go on a Cinderella run. Let's start with number 10. UC San Diego, 12 seed, 30-4 on the season, playing Michigan in the first round. And the reason why I like UC San Diego, not only have they won 30 games, bad teams don't win 30 games. It's just a fact. But they also have a stud. Eniwania Tate Jones. We're just going to call him Tate Jones because that's way easier. 6'6" guard from New Zealand. Leads UC San Diego in points, rebounds, assists, and blocks this season while shooting 58% from the floor. Guys, uber efficient. Okay, now while I like this because I like mid-major teams that have a legitimate dude who can go get a bucket. So I like that about UC San Diego. I like that they have dudes around him who can really shoot the ball. 37% from three this year as a team. What I don't like is Tate Jones's games it's tailored to getting inside and finishing at the rim. And Michigan has a ton of size on the interior between Danny Wolf and Golden. So that's kind of a tough matchup for them. But they did win 30 games. They do have shooting around Tate Jones. How does Michigan deal with that? It's going to be interesting. I do think that they should be a team that you should look at as a team that could potentially, be a Cinderella run. Number 9 on the list, VCU, an 11 seed. They went 28-6 this year. They have excellent NIL. We know that because of Seth Greenberg, who's going to be on the Dan Dawkins Show today at 12:30, by the way. They won the A10. That's a good conference. And I'm going with VCU for reasons that I don't really like here. When I pick mid-major teams to pull off upsets, I like picking teams that can really score and shoot the basketball at a high level. With VCU, they're just an elite defensive team. Okay, they are tops in the nation in effective field goal percentage defense and ranking. And they also rank in the top 5 nationally at defending twos. Okay, because they're pretty athletic when they guard the ball, and they've got a freshman, another name that's super tough. His name's Luke Bamgaboy. Crazy last name. Anyway, he's a pretty good rim protector, right? So they defend inside the three-point line pretty well. VCU very aggressive on the ball, which they can do because they're so athletic. The issue that I have with them is they don't shoot the ball great, only 33% from three. They don't have any singular great offensive player. Okay, they've got 4 dudes in their starting lineup that average double figures. That really seems to be it, though. Okay, but the A10's a good league. VCU won it, so I'm going to kind of bank on that a little bit. Number 8, Colorado State, another 12 seed. They're playing against, I got to double check this. VCU, by the way, they're playing BYU, which is kind of a tough matchup for them just because BYU is so good and explosive on the offensive side of the ball. Colorado State, they're playing Memphis in the first round, and that should be a good game. Memphis, one of the better teams in the country that I feel like people haven't really talked about a ton, but Colorado State, as hot as anyone coming into the NCAA tournament. They've won 10 straight games over the last month. They were 15-9. They finished the year 25-9. They're playing their best basketball of the year right now, and they have a stud. They have a dude who can go get a bucket, right? This is a large part of why I think they're a potential Cinderella team. Okay, as a team, they shoot 37% from three. Nick Clifford, dude can play. Averaging 19, 10, and 4, shooting 50% from the field, 40% from three. He's an NBA player. And it's really nice to have those whenever you're playing these one-off games. The issue that Colorado State might run into is they're not overwhelmingly athletic, but most mid-major teams aren't, so I'm not overly concerned about it. Another team on the list, Purdue fans, I know you're just so excited to hear me talk about High Point, but watch out, Purdue. High Point's a good basketball team. They went 29-5. They won their league, obviously. You don't go 29-5 if you're bad. Okay, this team can really score the basketball. This is one of the best offenses in the country, and these are the teams that pull off upsets, teams that can really score. The 26th in offensive efficiency, according to KenPom. Here's a big reason why I like High Point. They're not small. Most mid-majors don't have the size to compete with high-major teams. Up front, High Point absolutely does. Like, they have high major athleticism with this guy named Kamani Hamilton, a dude who transferred in from Mississippi State. They got another, 7-footer behind him named Jocelyn Bodo. Okay, like, they are big. More importantly, they're bigger than Purdue, which is going to be problematic for Purdue. So High Point can score. How does Purdue try to defend them? Obviously, Purdue can score, as Matt Murphy highlighted, at 11 o'clock. They're going to play a lot of drop coverage, which is what, Braden Smith wants to see. So going to be just a very interesting contrast of styles and how one team tries to defend the other. That game should actually be a lot of fun. Number 6 on our top 10 Tuesday, low seeds who could potentially go on a run. 11th seeded Drake. I think this is going to be a pretty popular pick. Drake playing Missouri in the first round. Drake went 30-3. Bad teams don't go 30-3. They won a tough league because the Missouri Valley is a tough league. They're a decent shooting team at 35% from 3 on the year, but they've got a stud. Bennett Sturts can play. Averaging 19.5 points per game. He can really shoot the rock, 39% from 3. The issue that I have with Drake is they aren't very athletic and they play really slow. Like, Bennett Sturts is an excellent guard, which makes me intrigued about them. But what makes me optimistic about them and why I'm not as concerned about the pace of play and the lack of athleticism is because they beat Kansas State and Vanderbilt earlier this year. That being said, if Missouri played them in the first round and overwhelmed them with their athleticism, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be. Number 5, probably my favorite team on this list, New Mexico. I've got them in my Sweet 16. They went 26-7. Okay, good teams don't win 26 games. And they've got a dude that can really play. I mean, like, really, really play. Richard Pitino is their head coach, son of Rick Pitino. So, he's got some nice help over there in his corner. But the real reason why I like them is they got this kid named Donovan Dent. The Lobos, sensational point guard, very dynamic, can really score the rock, averaging 20 points and 6.5 assists per game on the year. He's an awesome shooter, 41% from 3 on the year. He's the kind of guard you need if you want to pull off an upset, especially if you have him making it to the Sweet 16 like I do, which means that they'd have to beat Michigan State. Okay, this Donovan Dent kid, like, he is the heartbeat of New Mexico's offense. Okay, he's really good in ball screens, puts a lot of pressure on the rim, and he's paired with this double-double machine in Nelly Jr. Joseph. What a name. Okay, like this is one of the better 1-2 punches in all of mid-major hoops. Okay, New Mexico also a top 20 defense nationally, according to KenPom. They're big. Okay, like they've got 3 players in their starting lineup that are 6'9" or taller. Okay, and so like they're going to play Marquette here in the first round, and Marquette's not a very big team, so that game should be a lot of fun and very interesting to watch. McNeese State, another team that was, everyone seemed to pick last year to beat Gonzaga, but then you remember that Gonzaga just doesn't not make the Sweet 16 every year. So McNeese State crushed last year by Gonzaga. And I'm kind of concerned about McNeese State. I don't think that they have the proper roster to go on like a Cinderella run. Because like when you watch them, play their conference games, they just kind of overwhelmed the other teams that they played with athleticism. And I don't care how athletic you are, McNeese State isn't going to be any more athletic than a lot of these power conference teams that they play. That being said, McNeese State was very competitive in 2 games against SEC opponents this season, right? They hung around the whole way with Alabama in November. Okay, they lost a nail-biter to Mississippi State in December. Okay, this is a very good defensive team, long, athletic, versatile guys who can guard multiple positions, but they don't have an elite shot maker like they did last year in Shahada Wells. That was a guy that people were, not enamored with, but people like Shahada Wells. He's a good player. Okay, but they do have a transfer named Sincere Parker who, can kind of heat up and get going. He can kind of score in bunches. So we'll see. I don't like them as much as I did last year, but then again, they lost last year. So what do I know? Another team on this list for our top 10 Tuesday, low seeds that could go on Cinderella runs. Yale has to be in here. They beat Auburn as a 13 seed last year. They went 22-7 this year. Obviously, they lost Danny Wolf, but they're still a good team. They can shoot the heck out of the ball. They shot 39% from three this year. When you shoot the ball that well, you can beat anyone. And the other thing that I really like about them is they don't turn the ball over. If you're an underdog in one of these games, like the last thing that you can afford to do is give the team that's better than you more possessions. Okay? Like you can't make simple mistakes against teams that are better than you, and Yale doesn't do that. Now, Texas A&M probably going to beat them on the glass because that's just what Texas A&M does. They rebound the ball as well as anyone in the country. And Wade Taylor IV is a bucket. I don't know who Yale's going to have to put on him. So I am picking A&M in this game because I think Texas A&M is really good. But Yale's ability to shoot the ball, the fact that they're not going to make, dumb mistakes, they're not going to turn the ball over, gives them a chance to beat anyone in the country because, you show up, you make 40% of your threes, you only turn the ball over 3 times. Like, that's a lot of points. Like, it is. So Yale, definitely a team who could win a game or two in this year's NCAA tournament. Another team on this list, Liberty, 12 seed, a team that I really like. I've got them beating Oregon in the first round. The Flames are an appropriate mascot for Liberty because they can just shoot the ball. Okay, the best upset picks, I think, are teams that play, a high variance style, and Liberty definitely does that. They're top 25 nationally in three-point attempt rate, so they get them up. So if you don't like the NBA, then you're probably not going to enjoy watching Liberty play because they shoot a lot of threes, and that's bad apparently. And they're 5th nationally in three-point percentage. So they shoot a lot of threes, and they make a lot of them. And when Liberty gets rolling from downtown, they can beat anybody because the three-point shot covers a multitude of sins. That is the reality of it. Okay? And in addition to that, Liberty defends the three as well as anyone in all of college basketball as well. Okay? They've got 3 guards that can really shoot it, 3 guards who have hit 50 threes or more at a clip of 39% or better this year. Okay? So you can't just key in on one guy. Okay? So when you shoot the ball this well, you can beat anyone. Like the 3-point line is such an important thing in basketball at every level now. And if Liberty shows up against Oregon and they hit 7 more threes than Oregon does, then Liberty's probably going to beat them. That's just the simple reality of all of this. Last team, I've got a 14 seed in here. UNC Wilmington. They won 27 games this year. I don't like them for some reasons, but if any 14 seed is going to win this year, it's UNC Wilmington. We've seen a 14, 15, or 16 seed win a game in each of the last 4 NCAA tournaments. So this is kind of a trend. So the thing with UNC Wilmington is they're very large. They've got one guy in their rotation that is shorter than 6'5". They attack the rim well. They rebound pretty well. Okay, like they want to score at the rim, which I think is kind of problematic, but we'll get to that here in a second. They've got a big 7-footer named Harlan Obioa who can, create offense one-on-one in the low post. But I don't know, post defenders, once you get up to these Power 6 conferences, are just a different level of defender. So very intrigued to kind of see how UNC Wilmington does that. They're playing a really good Texas Tech team. So I'm not picking them to win, but hey, they might. My biggest issue with them is they don't really shoot the ball well. Only 34% from 3 on the season. That's, a little below average, which, I'm just not really a big fan of. So those are the 10 teams that I think are capable of going on Cinderella runs. But here's the thing, though. The thing that you want to pick in terms of a team going on a deep Cinderella run, you want the teams that have won a lot of games, which every team on this list has. I like picking teams that have an awesome player. I have New Mexico in my Sweet 16 because, Dent can really play. And they're big, okay? I like that about them because you have to have a guy who can get a bucket for you because there are going to be stretches where no one on your team can score and you're just going to have to give your best player the ball and hope that they can create something. And I think New Mexico has that. I think Colorado State has that as well. So we'll kind of wait and see how it goes. I'm very excited. And then the last thing that I like to pick in terms of teams winning, mid-major teams pulling off upsets, are the teams that can really shoot the ball as well because the 3-point shot covers a multitude of sins, as we know. When we come back here in about 4 minutes or so, the Pacers were awesome last night. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that they won that game with none of their best players actually playing in it. So when we come back here in about 4 minutes, I'm going to tell you, we're going to talk about the Pacers, why that win was such a big deal, because they really needed it. Pacers, why that win last night was so awesome and such a big deal when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Unadulterated sports talk with unfiltered takes. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully your week has gotten off to a good start. Hopefully you went ahead and put in that PTO so you can sit at home all day on Thursday and Friday and watch a little bit of college basketball. I wish I could do that. That sounds so lovely. I'm jealous if you get to do that. I am. But You're jealous of me because I got to stay up last night and watch the Indiana Pacers just play this incredible basketball game. I mean, they were just awesome. So I'm sitting down, to watch the game, and my wife is like, "Hey, I'm like, hey, Amelia, like I'm gonna watch this," and she's like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, I don't think I'm gonna watch it for too long, just because all the Pacers have, they're missing 4 of their 5 starters. No Pascal Siakam, no Tyrese Halliburton, no Aaron Nesmith, no Miles Turner. Andrew Nembhard got ejected. Benedict Mathurin fouled out, and the Pacers still found a way to beat the Minnesota Timberwolves, who were in the midst of an 8-game winning streak. I mean, just an incredible game. They win 132-130 in overtime. Did it matter that they couldn't stop Anthony Edwards? No, he had 38. Did half of his points come at the foul line? Yes, they did. He was 19 of 20 from the free throw line, but Obi Toppin showed up in a big way, 34 points, 7 of 10 from 3, including hitting this game winner called by friend of the program, Mark Boyle.
Pacers are down by 1. McConnell to the forecourt to the left wing. Circles back out to the top with the right hand. 11 seconds left to play. Driving off a Bryant screen to the wing, to the baseline, to the goal, across the lane, into the corner. An impossible 3 is drained by Toppin off the catch. He was floating out of bounds in the left corner, and that was a shot that most players wouldn't even try. He tried it because he had to, and he made it. That was a remarkable shot.
Mark Boyle on the call there last night, calling Obi Toppin's game-winning 3-point field goal. He was awesome, just always in the right spot, rebounded at a high level as well, which is something that I wish he'd do a little more often. 10 boards. Jarris Walker, really good in 35 minutes, 13 points, +2 on the night, 5 rebounds. When everyone fouled out or got ejected, he was tasked with having to defend Anthony Edwards, something that normally would have fallen into kind of Andrew Nembhard's area of expertise or Aaron Nesmith, but obviously Aaron Nesmith didn't play. Nembhard ejected. So Jarris Walker, he had good minutes last night. Benedict Mathurin, before he fouled out, he was good, just initiating the offense, getting to the rim, getting fouled. 7 of 8 from the foul line for him. Hit a few big threes. Just couldn't keep his hands to himself while playing defense. It was just, Tony Bradley, a center who's on a 10-day contract. I thought he was good. 12 points, 9 rebounds in 20 minutes, was just always in the right spot, ran his butt off up and down the floor. TJ McConnell just did TJ McConnell things, 11 points, like down the stretch. I'm sitting here, I'm wondering, like, where's the offense going to come from? Like who's going to initiate everything? And it was McConnell, and he did what he does, get to within 5 feet of the basket and then make a very tough contested 2, because that's just what he does. He finished with 11 points and 13 assists. When Nembhard went out, he was going to play more. Quentin Jackson, he got called upon. He had a couple big shots. He had 13 points in 18 minutes. He also had to try to guard Anthony Edwards as well. Didn't go very well, but then again, didn't go well for anyone trying to defend Anthony Edwards last night. It was just, a great game. There was a little scuffle because Rudy Gobert's a dirty player. He just shouldered Andrew Nembhard in the jaw. It was brutal. But look, that didn't slow down the Pacers. They played well, shot the ball really well. That's why they won. 17 of 37 from 3. That's 46%. Compared to the Timberwolves, 13 of 42. Man, when you shoot the ball better from 3, you're probably going to win. So that's what the Indiana Pacers did. Really impressive win from them. They now have an opportunity to stack some wins. They're going to host the, super beaten up Dallas Mavericks. They may have to forfeit that game if anyone else gets hurt. That's not a joke. That is a legitimate thing. That game's on Wednesday at home here at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Then Thursday they're at home against the Brooklyn Nets, a team trying to lose. They should win that one. And then Saturday they play the Brooklyn Nets at home again. So with this win, if they can win those next 3, that's 4 in a row. Right, that puts them at 42-29 on the season. This is a team that is still trying to earn that, fourth seed, which they need. They want home court advantage. Because whether they end up as whether they play the Celtics or Cleveland second round, doesn't matter. If they're not beating Either one of them. Okay, so like let's just get home court advantage. They're currently tied with record-wise. They are tied with the Milwaukee Bucks for the 4 seed, but Milwaukee holds that tiebreaker. This is a really important stretch for Indiana because Milwaukee's about to go out west. They're playing the Warriors tonight, so they're going to play like the Warriors and the Lakers and a lot of these other really good teams out on the West Coast, which is just a tough trip in general for a lot of these teams. Meanwhile, Pacers have a bit of a cakewalk. Okay, Nets twice, Mavericks, like win those 3. Hopefully have like a 2-game lead over the Bucks. Hopefully the Pistons can find a way to start losing again as well. The 4 seed still very much in play for the Indiana Pacers, but they're going to have to beat bad teams, which is something that they don't seem to do as consistently as they should. Speaking of consistency, we have to talk about Purdue. Purdue has been a top 4 seed 8 years in a row now in the NCAA tournament, which is really incredible. Making the tournament eight years in a row, I think is impressive because, usually during an 8-year stretch, you're going to deal with injuries and some bad luck. You're going to have a recruit that you think was going to be awesome, and then they end up not being awesome. Like that's, a very normal thing. So to make the NCAA tournament 8 years in a row is impressive. To be a top 4 seed though, 8 years in a row, like that's wildly impressive. Like Matt Painter just continues to be one of the best coaches in all of college hoops. Okay, Purdue has now had 8 straight seasons of being a 4 seed or better in the NCAA tournament. In the last 8 years, no one else is close to that. Arizona and Tennessee have been top 4 seeds 4 times in the last 8 years. Once again, no one's close to Purdue. 8 straight years of being a 4 seed or better. Now, there's 2 ways that you can go with this, and Purdue fans would say Matt Painter, one of the best coaches in all of college basketball. Like, dude just continues to find ways to win, even though he's not bringing in McDonald's All-Americans. And, his ability to structure offenses and defenses around the strengths of his players. Great coach, one of the best in all of college basketball. That is true. That is the, Purdue angle of it. And then there's the Indiana angle of it, where they ask a very simple question. If you've been a top 4 seed 8 years in a row, like why have you only been to the Final Four once? So that's a fair question. Like, it really is. And so it's such an interesting thing. Like, I think 2 things can be true. Matt Painter is one of the best coaches in all of college basketball, but he's also underachieved in March. Both of those things are undoubtedly true. Like, when you look at all the talent that has come through Purdue, Jaden Ivey, Zach Edey, Carson Edwards, those are just kind of the first 3 names. Braden Smith, those are just the first few names that come to mind. Like you'd think that, you'd have more than 1 Final Four on that list. That's what you would think. But, obviously Purdue does not. So hopefully they can get it rolling. But, man, they're going to play High Point in the first round. And that's not an easy game for them. High Point's good at a lot of the stuff that Purdue's bad at now. Flip side of things, the, High Point Panthers are bad at all the things that Purdue's good at. I think that's going to be an entertaining game. Purdue's probably going to win because they're going to have the 2 best players on the floor, which is always very, very helpful. But, we'll wait and kind of see what winds up happening. I'm going to give you another little glimpse into my bracket as we wrap up today's show. The Dan Dockett Show starting at 11:55. There is a Dan Dockett Show bracket challenge group. So if you want to join that, just head over to Twitter at Ticket1430. They tweeted it out. Follow them there. And yeah, I went chalk. I feel kind of bad about it. Probably going to change it here at some point. I got all 4 1 seeds in the Final Four. I think these are by far the 4 best teams in college basketball. Okay, Auburn has been great all year. Florida, they're the second most popular pick to win the whole thing. Okay, Duke is the most popular pick to win the whole thing. Okay, Houston, defensively, he's just been so tough. And, you're just kind of waiting on Kelvin Sampson to kind of break through. And I think it happens this year. I think they get to the Final Four. And then Duke is the best team in the country. there's some concern about Cooper Flagg. You shouldn't be concerned about Cooper Flagg because he's playing on Friday. That is straight from Coach John Shire. So they're going to be fully healthy. They just kind of ran through the ACC, and I know the ACC's down, but Duke has the best net rating in the country. Okay, they're outscoring their opponents by like 37 points on average per 100 possessions. That's kind of insane. So I've got Duke. It really just came down to I'm going to feel less bad about myself if I'm wrong about this. You know, if I picked Florida and Duke won the whole thing, I'd be like really pissed. I'd be like, I knew Duke was going to win it. Why didn't I just pick Duke? Now, if Duke loses, you know, I'm like, hey, I still feel like they're the best team in the country. This is just kind of, you know, it's the way the March Madness works. Nothing goes according to plan. So we'll see. I think the Cinderella run I have this year is New Mexico. I've been pretty adamant that I think that they're a really good team. You know, they've got a couple good players. They're big. I think they're going to be able to match up with some of these bigger, you know, power conference teams a little bit better than some of these other mid-majors. I've got Liberty beating Oregon in that second round or in that first round game and then losing to Arizona, even though Akron, like they're a tough team too. They shoot a lot of threes, especially from the corners that they can really shoot it. So Akron, like it's a really good basketball team. So we'll see. I'm pumped up. First 4 games, those start tonight. I hope that North Carolina goes on a run because that'd just be the most March Madness thing ever. Everyone's super upset that North Carolina got in. And then they're just like, yeah, you're upset, but we just made another run to the Elite Eight. So what are you going to do? And I just think that'd be hilarious. They are favored tonight by 4.5. I hope they win, and I hope they go on a run because that would just be really funny. And then, of course, the first game, 6:40, St. Francis and Alabama State. That game's going to be a blast. I say that having not watched either one of them play all year, but the matchup of the 16 seeds in the first 4, they're always really fun games for me. Games tend to be a little faster paced because there's no center. Usually everyone on the floor can handle the ball, and hopefully it's fun. I'm very excited for St. Francis, Alabama State tonight. And then, of course, the nightcap, North Carolina, San Diego State. The NCAA tournament starts today. Once again, hopefully you've got that PTO in for Thursday and Friday. Stay home, watch college basketball, and have a blast while you do it. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to tune into the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. The Dan Dockett Show is coming your way next. Nice little lineup for you. 2:30, we've got The Bear from Fox Sports to tell you how to best gamble on the NCAA tournament. And then at 12:30, we've got Seth Greenberg, who is always a blast to have on the Dan Dockett Show. So nice little lineup for you. The Dan Dockett Show is set to come your way here in about 5 minutes. I'll be back on the air tomorrow from 10 to noon. Thanks again for tuning in. I will talk to you tomorrow.